Paul Laskow has spent much of his career either on the shop floor or in the field, definitely not in the back office. He has extensive experience in manufacturing and distribution, and in particular in the areas of assembly, quality, inventory management, customer support, and shipping. He is currently the founder of Save Energy Systems, a very cool company, I might add, which uses a demand-limiting controller to deliver simple, innovative solutions that reduce energy costs for businesses. Paul, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Our first guest approached operations from a mentoring and a people management perspective. However, you've been equally successful by focusing on engineering. How would different executive backgrounds potentially affect a company's operational results?
Well, obviously everyone comes with their own bias, just based on their own personal experience as to what they have. I've always been a very hands-on type person and have really looked at it. People need to delegate. There's a lot that I like to oversee personally. So I think that has a lot of influence as to how people approach the problem and come up with their own solutions.
Tell us the Save Energy Systems story. Specifically, how did you come up with the idea? When was the company founded, etc.?
Sure. I actually had a previous company, which was an electronic contract manufacturing company. The electric bills would drive me crazy. During the winter, they'd be like $4,000. During the summer, they'd be about $14,000. I started looking around to see what was out that I could use to control the AC so that I wasn't getting hit with these big demand charges and high use charges, because this was a significant cost that was impacting the revenue of the company.
And for the benefit of our viewers, what is a demand limiting controller?
So the demand limiting controller actually comes in and manages all of the HVAC units concurrently and relative to one another, so it limits them all from running at the same time, thereby limiting the demand, which is a portion of a commercial electric bill that is billed by the utility company in order to compensate for the peak amount of use.
So you're not only controlling peak use, but you're also not cooling or heating an empty office?
Correct.
When you're acquiring then the type of equipment for Save Energy Systems, do you think it's better to purchase it off the shelf, or do you add proprietary processes on the back end to make it work as you hope it would?
We try to buy what we can off the shelf and then modify what we can that's already off the shelf. If necessary, then we go to a custom engineering design and solution.
If you need to maximize the efficiency of the equipment, say a year after it was first purchased, do you then have to hire outside specialists to tweak it? Or is your existing knowledge base sufficient with the off-the-shelf components?
Really, our existing knowledge base is sufficient with off-the-shelf components. The components really that are off the shelf are still doing everything we want them to do. Otherwise, we'd end up going with a more customized solution.
So where's the secret sauce? Is it in software? Is it in hardware? Is it a combination thereof?
It's also the approach. It's a matter of that we're managing everything concurrently and relative to one another. And that's really the secret sauce, in that we're looking at everything all at one time before we turn on something else, so we know what's going on throughout the entire facility.
And you're making money in the sales of the equipment, not necessarily in the savings that your customers are able to acquire.
Correct. We're really not interested in going off and sharing of the savings. It's a one-time acquisition from the customer perspective, and they can go off and really generate savings for years and years to come.
And if you need to do service calls, of course, that's incremental revenue to you folks to get things working, etc.
Exactly. We have incremental revenue there, as well as we have an annual software update service that people can subscribe to, as well as we now offer a monitoring service that we will monitor what's going on with the system, and if necessary, take the appropriate action in order to make sure that the mechanical functionality is running properly.
What would you say are the three biggest challenges that Save Energy Systems is facing today?
You know, and I think this is not unusual for most companies. Obviously, money. We're a startup company. Startup companies use a lot of money. We can actually use some additional financial resources.
And are you saying that your margins could be higher, or you need to raise more money, or a little bit of both?
We need to raise more money. Our margins are great.
Right.
So we need to raise more money. Which brings me to the second one, is obviously increased sales.
Sure.
Right now, because we have actually limited resources available, we have a limited sales force, we're not actually able to do everything we want to be able to do. And so we can't penetrate the markets as rapidly as we'd like to. If we could get more sales, we'd have more margins, we wouldn't need the money.
Right. And of course, if you raised more money, you could also hire more sales
exactly.
people. And
right. And then the third thing is some additional technical resources. As I talk to customers, every customer I talk to gives me more and new ideas as to how to expand the system.
You're watching The Language of Business. I'm Greg Stoller, and we're talking with Paul Laskow, the CEO of Save Energy Systems. He spends a lot of his time thinking how to innovate the engineering operations of his business. So how much of your time as CEO is spent on engineering and operations versus management of the company as a whole?
Yeah, I would say probably about 25 to 30% of the time is really spent on the engineering operations, particularly around specific projects. The rest of it is broken out between sales, administration, financials, whatever.
But are you going to the actual job sites not only to do the initial presentation, but to supervise the installation, or is that a couple of layers removed from you?
At this point in the size we are, I stop by every job site to make sure it's going well.
Why am I not surprised?
But really there's somebody else on site that's actually managing the installation, but I want to maintain that relationship with the customer, make sure that they're happy.
And to let them know that the person sitting in the corner office actually cares.
Absolutely.
So, as a corollary and looking at your business holistically across all of your staff, how key is operations to your business compared with, as you mentioned before, everything else, corporate strategy, marketing, etc.?
Operations is really the face of the company to the customer. So as far as I'm concerned, that is key and critical and has to deliver what we promise. If our sales guys promise something and we can't deliver it, we look bad to the customer, we get a bad name, we get a bad reputation. It's going to be disastrous for the company.
Now, taking a step back from your company and even the industry at large, what do you think are the two biggest areas of operations companies have to be cognizant of these days?
First and foremost is quality. If you're not delivering quality, there's no reason to be in business. People just expect it and they demand it.
Right.
And second is really training.
So demand quality controller as opposed to a demand limited controller?
That's right. and the second thing is really having people trained properly to perform their job once and get it done and move on. If you're not operationally efficient with trained people, you can't make money.
You're saying we can't live in a 3-call society where it takes 3 phone calls to get anything done.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter whether we're actually out at a customer site doing an install or actually doing manufacturing or fabrication internally. It has to be done once, has to be done right, and then you move on. It's amazing how you always have time to go back and fix the problem, but you feel like you're rushing to get it done right the first time. Spend the time, get it done right the first time. What
career advice would you have for someone looking to start their career in operations or engineering?
Work from the bottom up. Engineering, operations, I always felt that it's important to be able to do, or have the knowledge to at least to be able to do, whoever you're supervising. If you can't explain to them or talk with them at the level that they can understand and perform at, then it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to be successful and do your job.
Even though it might be a hit to your ego that for the first 3 to 5 years of your career, you actually have to be in the trenches doing the non-sexy part of the business before you actually move into being a supervisor or management.
Absolutely. Learning the job in the trenches gives you skills that you carry forward with you for the rest of your career.
What would you say are the 1 or 2 biggest lessons that you gleaned when you started in the trenches?
Yeah, really, it was. From my perspective, it was really how to think and troubleshoot a technical solution in real time. We were building circuit boards and we had to find out why they weren't working, and customers were waiting for the solution and we had to be able to do it. And the second one was really manufacturing automation. How do we go off and build high quality production items using minimal amount of labor to do it?
Great, thanks Paul.
My pleasure.
Paul Laskow. Not surprisingly, improving operations isn't an area of business solely reserved for turnaround operations or new startups. Our next guest has a well-functioning, profitable business, but has come up with an idea for expansion which she believes will make the large company even better as a whole. However, she's finding there's no such thing as a quote-unquote free lunch, as her expansion idea will require some creative operational retooling of her existing facilities, which, not surprisingly, is a restaurant. Jody Mendoza is coming up next on The Language of Business.